Fellow teachers of Reddit, what experiences have you had with dumb parents? I substituted in a HS for 5 months to finish off the year for a teacher who was on maternity leave. So I had a student, high school senior, who never did any homework, accounted for 35% of the total grade. I would constantly send emails to the parents, who always responded that they'd deal with it, spoke with the parents at conferences, and kept the admin in the loop. 1 week before finals, I send the notice home that she needed to get a 97% on the final to pass the class and get the credits she needed for graduation. And I even gave her one more chance to turn in pass homework for 50% credit. FF to the final, she barely gets a passing grade and therefore can't get the credits, can't graduate, can't enlist in the Air Force like she had intended. The parents come into the office of the school screaming at everyone that they had no clue it would come to this. When we all sat down in an office with the guidance counselor, principal, department head and myself, I reviewed the several notices with them, explained that she had multiple opportunities to gain credit, etc., but refused to do anything. Turns out the wife was hiding the emails and information from her husband and wanted her daughter to fail so she wouldn't join the Air Force and move away from home. Last I heard from the situation, they're not together. The daughter is working at Lowe's, never finished HS, and has 2 kids and multiple arrests for selling drugs. There's a reason I didn't want to pursue teaching as a career after that. Well, the mother got her wish. Daughter was manipulated into staying near home. The lack of a decent relationship between these two will cause the daughter to manipulate her own children to the same effect. The cycle continues. Just before Christmas break, I had the student's hand in a paper. One of the students was missing a page, so I pulled out the contact sheet that I had the students fill out at the beginning of the year, and gave a call. The student's father picked up the line, said thanks for calling, we will definitely get that extra page into you. The next day, the student's mother comes storming into the classroom. She happens to be an education assistant at the school. She demands to know where I got that number. I said that her son had put it on the contact sheet. Apparently the parents are separated. She proceeded to tell me that I had no right to call that number, and that when there is a problem with their son, only SHE has the right to know. I told her, thanks, that's good to know. That's when she dropped this bombshell. If he hands something in that is incomplete, you fail him, you got that? Fail! Then she walked out of the classroom. This coming from a person who is supposed to help children succeed. I had a student who I caught plagiarizing in an essay. The 0 was going to cause the student to not graduate on time. The parent called a meeting, but I had proof of the action. I explained the assignment, and I showed the parent my proof, and that is when she said, but I wrote that part of the essay, not my daughter, so she didn't cheat, I did. I taught English in Colombia for a summer, and had some pretty interesting interactions. One particular set of parents insisted that their son was a brilliant genius who didn't need to study. He rarely came to class and therefore could barely speak any English, while the rest of his classmates could speak full, basic sentences. I emailed his parents my concerns for his apparent lack of motivation, and they told me that he could speak perfect English and didn't need to come to class, so they let him skip. Finally, parent-instructor conferences time came and I asked them to bring their son. I asked him in English, "How is English class coming along?" He stared blankly and just started crying. Told you so? How did the rest of the conference go? I told the parents simply that the school required a passing grade from my class in order for their son to advance to the next grade. They were incredibly defensive, saying he was just nervous and such, at first, but it's pretty hard to bullshit your way through a foreign language and get away with it. That eventually started forcing him to come to class, and he eventually passed, barely. I wouldn't call them dumb parents, but parents who are in denial about who their child actually is break my heart. For instance, we had a student who had an abundance of markers for autism and was in 6th grade. All the teachers on the student's team agreed they ought to tell the parents their concerns and suggest the student be tested so we could offer more resources for the student. The teacher who spoke with them was very polite, very kind in suggesting they try and figure out how best to help the student, and the mom literally screamed at her that nothing was wrong with her child and that she would never get the student tested. Her husband even tried to tell her that it wasn't a bad thing and that they should try and see if it would help since his teachers who knew him thought it might. The mom started cussing out the teacher and stormed out. I teach in a college, so the students are almost always 18 or over. A couple years ago, one student's mother called the chair of my department to complain on behalf of her daughter about the difficulty of some work listed on my syllabus. My chair was baffled, asked the mother if her daughter was over 18. The mother replied that her daughter was 20 years old. My chair explained that it was then her daughter's responsibility to either speak with me directly or withdraw from the course. That's it, that's all. It's college. People only go if they want. One's mother can do anything about the workload. Seriously, I'm glad that's the policy in college, so then kids who had helicopter parents can learn to grow without the helicopter influence. I once had a girl in undergrad come into an exam late. The professor flipped at her, telling her that she is 40 minutes late into the midterm and she cannot take it. The girl whips out a note from her mom about a dentist appointment and says it's okay. Professor started to laugh so hard and just said to tell her mom that it is unfortunate that she believes that a parent's note would outweigh the course's guidelines. While the prof is absolutely correct to laugh at the note, I don't see why he wouldn't let the student take it, starting 40 minutes late. Their problem that they only have 5 minutes, or however long, to finish. My wife is a teacher. One time she had a parent blame her for giving the student autism. Oh shit, caught the autism again. Better stay inside for 3 to 5 days and drink plenty of liquid. The stupidity of some individuals never ceases to amaze me. A pre-K student's mother got in my face. She towered over me and yelled at me for telling her daughter she was not a Rio princess. This was in front of her daughter, other children, and other parents. The director of the school wanted me to apologize to the woman. I refused. Ma'am, if you or your husband can show me the proof of your regal standing within any country, I would be glad to call your daughter a princess. However, unless you are actually a queen and or your husband is a king, your daughter is not a princess. Oh man, if this was in Canada or the UK or any Commonwealth country, it would be hilarious to threaten the parents with execution for treason too. My uncle was a teacher in a school for troubled kids for about 10 years, elementary. One day a kid starts talking about how the plants in there are all over his house. My uncle, being a long-time surfer and product of the 70s, didn't say anything at first. Then, during a parent-teacher conference, the parents are just being flat-out uncooperative. It ain't my son's fault you failing him. Dad on you. He do his homework, I see him. Ma'am, he needs more FOC. Nah, you don't what you are talking about. How do you even be a teacher when you don't know shit? My uncle dash. I know you're cultivating marijuana at the same home where your son lives. Boom. He said. She got a look on her face that was just priceless, like she just shit her pants. Then he told her, get rid of the plants, today, and sit down with your son and help him with his work. Or else. Not sure if this counts as dumb, but I had one parent come to school, drop off her child, and physically assault an elementary schooler she believed was bullying her child before I could stop it. That was scarring for everybody involved. I lived in St. Louis for work for a while. One of the craziest things I saw in the papers was about a mom and her friends that drove from the city to the suburbs to fight some girls in her daughter's class. The mom and friends put locks and coins in socks and hit the other girl with them. The absolute worst part? The mom knew so little about her own daughter she went to the wrong school and attacked some random girl that didn't even know her daughter. Parent thought all the F's the student was receiving stood for fantastico. My teacher friend almost lost it in their face during parent-teacher conference. Reminds me of this story. My neighbor went to the Catholic school where students in primary grades received grades of O, outstanding, S, satisfactory, and U, unsatisfactory. She got a bunch of us on her assignments, and her mother was very angry with her. And my neighbor told her mom, "But mom, you means you did good." I work as an assistant at an art studio, and we have a 7-year-old with seizure syndrome. Except that, I'm pretty sure she doesn't. I'm pretty sure she has one seizure once and her mom freaked out and had her diagnosed. Now this little girl loved to terrorize her mother. She's told me that. She's looked up at me with her big brown eyes and gigantic, toothy smile, and told me that she likes messing with her mom and making her angry because her mom is too protective and one of those hovercopter parents. So this little girl just jerks her mom every which way, and it's hilarious because her mom is just like that. Overbearing, extremely protective, and really, really bossy. She'll tell the main teacher and I how to teach her daughter how to draw and how many colors to use, etc., etc., etc. But we don't have to retaliate, or even say anything because her daughter does it for us. That little girl is fantastic. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.